People would come at me for this. Was the Cheltenham bumper that strong?
We're back. Welcome along to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV, and we're back for the 2025 to 2026 jumps season. If you've watched us before, you'll know my name is Josh and this is Andrew, and if you've not, Josh, Andrew, nice to meet you and welcome along to the channel. Over the next probably 8 months, we're going to be trying to dissect every individual part of the jump season, trying to find some winners along the way, and also trying to entertain you as much as possible. I'm sure you will see that we're not the greatest punters in the world, but we're trying our hardest, and that is what matters. Andrew, good summer?
Yeah, great summer. Have had a good little bit of downtime, enjoyed some of the Premier Flat meetings, which we're obviously able to do so through work, and now very much ready to get back into the jumps action. It's just that time of the year, you start getting the tingles, start looking back on some of the races from last year and really beginning to work it out.
Do you know what it was? The other day I woke up and it's been so warm. We're living in London at the moment. It's been so warm. It's been like 25 and that's been quite cool in comparison to some days. There was one day yesterday I woke up, it was 12 degrees and raining and I went, can you just smell Chepstow?
Oh, you can.
Oh, it's just round the corner somewhere, isn't it?
Soft ground is somewhere.
Soft ground is somewhere. Absolutely cannot wait to get stuck into this season. And on this video, we're going to be giving you jumps horses to follow, 4 each. And then we've also asked some of you on Twitter, which you can go and follow us down below here, for some horses to follow. And we're going to be talking and discussing those very horses. But just a bit of housekeeping this season. We're still working with Cheltenham Racecourse, which is wonderful. So we're going to be offering you plenty of perks throughout the season, especially if you're aged 18 to 28. There's some big changes coming at Cheltenham and you need to be part of them because they do sound very positive. And then also, I suppose, is it fair to say we've been dabbling? I know you mentioned the Premier Flat meetings, but we've been dabbling a little bit more than we normally have.
We have, yeah. No, we've had to stick our face above the parapet on this summer. You've obviously done some superb work with Nick Luck Daly. I've absolutely loved, and I must confess, looking at Nick Luck Daly's content on YouTube between Goodwood and York, these mics seem familiar.
These mics, could these be the mics?
I think they might be.
Well, as Nick is one of the best in the game, I personally believe that. I'm very lucky to work with him. You've been doing some shifts on Nick Luck Daily as well?
I have indeed, yeah.
I just want to... Do you reckon he touched that? He's going to think I'm really weird, isn't he? A right stalker. Anyway, over the last few weeks, I've been around a few yards, some of the big yards, not the biggest yards, but some very much on the up, and I've been recording some interviews, which will also be released on LTR Plus, interviews in full. They won't be released anywhere else. There might be a snippet or two in this video, but if you do want to go and watch the full ones, are like 10 to 20 minutes long, depending on which trainer it is, we're talking about all of their horses for the season or the main ones that you need to be excited about, then you can do so by subscribing to LTR Plus. We do massively appreciate all of the support on that over the summer. We know that we haven't been uploading anything, so content and value would have been low, but we do massively appreciate it. It means we get to upgrade the channel as we go along, so thank you for your support. If you do enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We want to hit 500 likes on our return video, and if we do that, we'll give something away next week. Right. Jumps horses to follow. What angle are you going in?
I think mostly looking at mine, we're looking at novice hurdlers, novice chasers. I think that's very much an element. I think people will get used to me that I don't necessarily try to go for the absolute obvious. I don't necessarily have the in links to the point-to-point horses from last year, stuff like that. So some of them will be more obvious than others. Some will be from trainers people will expect. Some from trainers maybe they won't expect.
Okay. Is there a Paul Nolan horse in there?
There is.
Yes! That is what we wanted. And I'm going to let you take the floor first.
Well, we're going to get the Paul Nolan horse in at number 1 here. I had a nice call with James Nolan, obviously brother of Paul, a few days ago, getting a bit of the scoop. Interestingly enough, I was asking about a horse called The Devil You Know, who is a horse we might discuss a little bit later on. on when talking about one of Willie Mullins' bumper horses. But he steered me in the direction of Rock On By, who's a talented mare in her own right. She fell in her point-to-point when looking like she was going to win. That point-to-point was won by Kingston Queen, who was a listed winner for David Pipe last year in a bumper and was then third in the mare's bumper at the Aintree Festival. So that looks decent enough form. She then went to Galway on her bumper debut, beat Alarive, who has won for Willie Mullins, a half-sister to Alboom Photo, and then had a little bit of a setback mid-season, had a hamstring issue. They were actually going to send her over to Huntington for a listed mare's bumper, but she had to take a little bit of time off, and it was a little bit of a rush to get back to the listed mare's bumper at the Punchestown Festival, where she was a good fifth behind Carrickmorna Spruce. If you look back at that race, I thought she almost travelled into it like the best mare in the race, blew up under Derek O'Connor. That was the feedback they got. She's going to be campaigned to try be a graded mare's novice horse this year. How's, obviously you're going to be up against around 100 Willie Mullins horses in that division. But I think she is a talented horse. Be very surprised if she can't win a maiden hurdle very early in the season, and they'll say it from there.
Paul Nolan horse. I do like her, and on debut she was stylish as well.
She was. She travelled through the race nicely, and at Galway it's a tough enough place to make your debut, and they seem to like that Alarive. She's, I think, 1 from 3 in bumpers now, but she knuckled down well. As I say, she travels with a bit of class, and always like to see that in a horse. I think you can look at that Punchestown Festival and certainly see the positives of that run. And with that in mind, they seem to have gotten a clear run at her thus far this season. She'll be out probably in late October, early November for a maiden.
And I can't even turn around to you this year and go, well, Paul Nolan didn't win anything last year, because he did. He had a great year.
He did. Christmas winner, DRF winner, Cheltenham Festival winner, Fairy House winner.
And hopefully that all continues. Right, if you were going to think of a horse that I was going to put up as my first horse to follow in a jump season, what profile would you give it?
I'd say something that we haven't heard of.
Yeah.
Something that's trained by either Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott.
Right.
And may have some point-to-point roots.
Right. Well, you're correct.
Yes.
But you'll have to wait to the second horse to follow.
No.
Because
I've done my dough.
the first horse that I'm going to put up is actually complete opposite. This is a horse rated 115 who I think is well handicapped. I know, I'm growing. And that makes me feel great.
Have you learned and improved?
I think I've learned and improved. He's a 6-year-old trained by Ollie Murphy, and he's called Jukebox. Now, he's a horse who, when he arrived at Ollie's, Ollie was quite excited about. And then on debut, he bumped into a Union Avenue who finished 9th in the Cheltenham bumper, so pretty good form there. And he just kept bumping into really good horses. He's yet to win. He's a maiden. I think he's had 6 starts. Second start, he was 2.5 lengths behind French Ship, who's rated 128, giving him £6. Good form. Yeah. On his following start, he was 10 lengths behind the Kemble Brewery, rated 129, and Durankin was in the race, 132. He beat Hartington that day of the Tizards. He's rated 119 as we currently speak. And then next run at Foss Lass, he was 6 lengths behind Crest of Fortune, who's rated 135 himself. He finished a 2-length third in the Grade 1 Sefton at Aintree. So I'm thinking this is a decent horse. That day also, Farland was behind him off 120, Capvert 118. With all that being said, I think he's a 125 horse maybe?
Yep.
115.
Sounds awfully plausible.
I think there's a good chance this horse has got a stone in hand and he just keeps bumping into good horses. Obviously, he's got to break the duck. That won't be in a maiden hurdle. I don't think Ollie's stupid enough to do that. I think he's going to go and find a handicap for him. But he's rated 115. If we had a chat this time next year and he was rated 130, 132, 133, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. So I think if you follow him, especially early season, you might reap the rewards financially. So Jukebox is my first horse to follow for Ollie Murphy. Your second horse to follow, please.
Comes from Willie Mullins. We're getting it back to the big dog. And we're looking at bumper horses from last year.
Okay.
Obviously, he's won the Cheltenham bumper and the Punchestown bumper with the same horse.
Yep.
There will be videos out there that will have her as a horse to follow.
Bambino Fever, yeah.
Yeah. Easy for you to say.
No.
I think there may be a bit of a lurker
Okay.
in the fillies division that won at the Punchestown Festival as well in the shape of Wonderful Every Day. Owned by Brian Drew, same colours as Final Demand has on every second run. And she was very impressive in a bumper where there wasn't much market confidence. She was third or fourth string.
It was a debut, right, as well?
It was. So no point-to-point experience, just kind of launched into this 16-1.
At the Punchestown Festival.
At the Punchestown Festival. Ruth Dudfield taking the ride. And I thought she just warmed through the race quite well. She constantly seemed to be a little bit on and off the bridle, showing probably necessary greenness that you would expect from a horse of that nature. But the way she hit the line, Ruth Dudfield didn't have to get in any way serious near the line. She's gone on to win 2.5 lengths. And she just looked to me like one of those promising horses. I just looked at last year's bumper crop. People would come at me for this. Was the Cheltenham bumper that strong? It didn't seem it.
Is there a growing theme with this every year? Last year, the best bumper horse who won the Cheltenham bumper, Jasmine DeVoe. I suppose he did do extremely well to win at Cheltenham again, but I don't think he was the best novice hurdler last year.
No.
Copec de Board was.
Yeah.
And he didn't run in any festival bumper.
We've just seen a few now in recent years.
The year before, Ballyburn.
Yeah, Ballyburn, Dysart Dynamo the year before that. You know, so you've had horses that constantly haven't been running in the Cheltenham bumper, kind of springing onto the novice hurdle scene. Now, I suppose you'd look at the stats of the Mayor's Novice Hurdle and Willie Mullins horses in that race, and usually that would lead you to point to France, not to maybe the bumper crop. And I completely understand that. I wouldn't say Wonderful Every Day might be a Mayor's Novice Hurdle horse for the Cheltenham Festival. She'd more give me the vibes of the Ferry House 2.5 mile race. I think she's a stayer in time, and I think she's that type of horse that might just improve gradually throughout the season at that sort of rate of knots. Maybe not be the flashiest horse possible. I think Bambino Fever is a very, very good horse. Showed really nice turn of foot in the Cheltenham bumper, Punchestown bumper. She could be a complete cut above. I'm just not sure what she was actually beating in those races. So perhaps you're getting a horse that's a little bit more unexposed rather than the one that maybe everyone will be going for.
I've got a horse next up who's extremely unexposed, trained by Willie Mullins. And the profile that you told me about, the first horse I was going to put up, this is that profile.
Come on!
I think this is the possible potential superstar. Now look, I don't want to brag, but this time last year, I was quite warm on a few horses, one of them being Final Demand. He didn't turn out too bad, did he?
No.
Bear in mind, we hadn't seen him under rules at that point.
Actually a very good shout.
Now, this horse is owned by the same owner as Final Demand. Brian Drew owns him, and he's a horse called Heldham. He's a 4-year-old. Now, you may have seen him on Twitter, and I know a few accounts have tweeted about him, and I made a video about him, horses to follow, and I did want to talk about him. He's the only one that I've talked about on Twitter that I'm going to include in this because I think he could be a superstar. He's bred beautifully. The dam is Cat Moves, who was a 4-time listed winner in France. He beat Lord Rouge in a 2.5 mile Punchestown point-to-point. Lord Rouge is also extremely highly thought of, another top prospect. Sourced by the same people as Final Demand. And look, I've done my research. I've spoken to all the people that have had anything to ever do with this horse. If you once went to Willie Mullins's and you gave him a carrot or a polo, I've messaged you, right? John Dwan is consigner, and Matthew Flynn O'Connor, who produced him to a point-to-point for Ballycrystal Stables. Both of them spoke glowingly. There was talks of Sporting John. I know that Matthew Flynn O'Connor was a massive fan of him, and John Dwan spoke about his incredible reactive movement. Like, he, as a young horse, when they're so agile, you can tell that they're athletic, and he was one of those. And then I asked about the comparison with Final Demand. Obviously, this time last year, I was very keen on him. He's gone on to look like a Gold Cup horse down the line, and Matthew Flynn O'Connor basically said that I think he's quicker than Final Demand.
That's true.
Different type of horse. He did preface that Final Demand has done it on the track, but this horse could be very good, and he's a bit quicker. So that makes me think he could be more of, say, a 2 mile, 2.5 miler. Now, I did speak to his owner, and there might be people out there that might want to back him for the champion bumper because he's a 4-year-old. he's going to go hurdling. So he's going to hopefully make up into a Grade 1 horse, I would like to think. And I just think personally now, and this is purely a charity bet, if you've got a spare £2 or £3, if you were going to have a tickle at him at 40-1, which he currently is for the Supreme, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world at this time of year. If you're going to have a fun bet, obviously I'm telling you to back a horse that's never been seen under rules. But this time last year, Final Demand was that same horse as well. And we've had success in the past with Quilixios, Fasol Vega, Vauban. So you never know. He could just be the next one. I'm very excited about Heldham.
Yeah, no, I can completely see the case for that. You know, it just seems Brian Drew as well. It's funny with some owners, you can go through dry spells and then you suddenly get a few horses just like that all coming together at the same time.
Well, funnily enough, all of them trained by Willie Mullins.
Yeah.
He had not wonderful success. Obviously, he had Brave Man's Game, but other than that, he had a limited success over here. You send a few to Willie. It's that easy, mate. It's that easy.
Apparently it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to go to your other big man, Gordon Elliott.
Right, okay.
4-1. A novice hurdler from last year. Bit of a slow burner. Came a bit slowly to come to hand. Fell on his first hurdling start. Horse called Card Counter. Quite a lot of people will know Honesty Policy.
Yeah.
Who obviously was owned by the same owner before going to JP.
He's also owned by the Woolpox previous owner.
Yes,
right.
Francis Mankin.
Yeah.
So he fell on his hurdling debut, then went to went to a Punchestown maiden hurdle, beat Dr. Eggman by 5.5 lengths. That was a very impressive performance. He looked a little bit behind the bride, a little bit green. Then they went to Navan with him in a 2 mile 6 novice hurdle. This is a race that's been won by some decent horses in the past. He beat Blue Mosque, who's a mare of considerable ability for Noel Mead, and Butch Cassidy, who was certainly a horse on a lot of people's lips at the start of last season for Henry de Bromhead and the Magners. So that looked a pretty decent performance. They then decided to kind of fly him into Grade 1 company behind Jasmine DeVoe at the Punchestown Festival. He disappointed. I'd like to hope that was perhaps ground related. End of 4 runs within only 3 months.
It's a vote of confidence, and he was backed.
He was.
I think he was about 11-1.
Yeah, he was. He kind of was an each way angle into the race. I think people like to get behind him. And I just look at him and go, he's a softer ground horse, he's a 3 miler to be, and he's a novice chaser to be. He's the type of horse that Gordon Elliott must be looking at and salivating.
And he's rated 137.
Oh, you've endless possibilities here.
Yeah.
You could go down an honest to God route of novice chases. Will we do that? I'm not so sure. Type of horse I would love to see in an Irish national as a novice. That type of horse where we see him 3 or 4 times throughout the year, maybe running a Florida Pearl or something like that. Get the necessary experience. But we get him into a handicap off 135, 140 come the end of the season, I'll get very keen.
There we go. I like that very much. And also talking about handicaps in April, whilst we're in the 1st of September.
Irish national prep.
That is content that I love, and I know that people behind the camera will also love. Right, my third horse to follow is a mare trained by Ben Pauling. You might not know that. I don't think that's necessarily public information, but she's a 5-year-old called A Fancy Getaway. And I think she could be a smart mare's novice hurdle horse for the season. Not saying that she's going to run in the Cheltenham race, but I think that she's going to rank highly amongst especially British mares going novice hurdling. She won a point-to-point by 23 lengths. That turned out pretty well. The second has placed for Gordon Elliott. The third won another point-to-point on her next start, and then won a bumper for Henry de Bromhead. So the form looks very, very decent. She was bought privately for a high fee. I think she's going to run in the same colours as Slipway.
Okay, lovely.
Another one of Ben Pauling's. And Ben's got 2 really smart mares going hurdling this year. One is Hornica, who finished 4th in a Cheltenham bumper. I'm not exactly sure what meeting it was, it's escaped my head, but finished 4th. I think she was quite unlucky that day, and she could rank highly, but I think A Fancy Getaway was sold for a lot of money, and I think they think hopefully she could just be the one. If there was, say, going to be another Diva Luna or something like that, A Fancy Getaway could be that mare. Yeah,
well, I think it's also important to note when we're trying to put these kind of horses together that, I understand Cheltenham Festival is an awful lot to a lot of people, but we're trying to find horses that are going to win races throughout the year
and hopefully win first time up as well.
Exactly. And I do feel perhaps at times, when you're looking at other videos, there's almost a bit of point scoring about trying to find festival winners and stuff like that. We're trying to find horses that hopefully might have a little bit in hand, stuff like that. And that leads me on to my last horse, which is a Henry de Bromhead horse for Robcore, a horse called Good and Kind. Now, some people might look at me and go, I'm a year late to the bus with this. He was kind of a fancy Wise Guys horse going into last year. He was second in that Goran point-to-point bumper a couple of seasons ago in March time, second to Port Julian for Willie Mullins. He's been a little bit disappointing, but they didn't get a clear run with him last year. Ended up only making his hurdling debut back in March. He was second to Dr. Eggman down in Limerick. That was an okay run. Dr. Eggman's quite an exposed horse. And then he went and won his maiden hurdle next time out at Sevens On. So you'll think of that and you look at his mark of 129 and go, that might be a little bit harsh based on what he's achieved. But I do believe, and the vibes from the yard, from the owner, do seem to be that this is a smart horse, and they just haven't necessarily got a free run with him yet. Seemingly, touch wood, they have got a free run with him going into this season thus far, and the plan is to go straight chasing. He's a big burly horse. He was sourced from the point-to-point field, and I think that's where we'll see him to best effect. I would think, possibly in comparison to Card Counter, I suspect this horse will be campaigned to try and be a graded novice chaser, and then if he has to slip back down into handicaps, they will go and do that. But he's the big type of horse that we see it year in, year out with Henry de Bromhead horses. We've got horses with a certain rating. They go over a fence. They're near on a stone better.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me if this horse ends up being more towards the 140 bracket than the 130 bracket at the end of the season.
I love that. Very much like that. I like him as a horse as well. He is a unit.
He's huge.
He's a big boy, and hopefully you'd like to think with size it doesn't always happen that he'll be an even better chaser. Now I'm hoping that is the case with my final horse to follow, and this is one a bit left field as a 5-year-old trained by Warren Greatrex, funny enough, called Koapey, Koapey, and I just think there is simply more to come over fences, which he's going this season. He's off 119 on a hurdles mark, but I think he could be quite a smart novice chaser. To date, he finished, I think he finished third in a very decent bumper on debut. He's been ultra consistent. He was 4 lengths behind the Kemble Brewer. It's probably his best form. He won on his last start, but it was a bit of a dross race. But I just really like the way he goes about things. On his second last start, he was far too free at Newbury, went forward, got, well, not chinned, he was beaten comprehensively, but they were a million miles away from the field behind. I think he's a smart horse. I think he's going to be a better chaser, and I do think he's the type of horse that will especially benefit at tracks like Newbury, Aintree, those kind of galloping, flatter tracks I think will really suit him, and I do think that he's going to be a smart horse. Now, one thing that's interesting is when I was down at Christian Williams's last Tuesday, a representative from the BHA was there, and I had a good chat with him. And well, he was a BHA. He's a race planner of the BHA. Okay. And I asked, what are the main changes? And he said, well, probably the main changes this season, and it's not really about the horse, but just a topic of conversation, is this year the BHA are massively looking at the way that the Irish do their novice chasers. So we have a very limited amount of beginners chasers over here. There's going to be so many, especially early season. You're not really going to have a novice handicap chase until the second half of the season. Yep. So sort of February time they pick up. But for the early part of the season, you're going to see there are lots of beginners chases over lots of different distances, mainly up to 3 miles, and obviously there's going to be more of a 2. But a lot of trainers have called for this. A lot of trainers, especially the likes of Dan Skelton, Nicky Henderson, I can't run my horse, my really good horse over fences. Where do I start? The ground's not right there. There's going to be far more opportunities for them to run in beginners chases, but obviously once you win one, you can't run any more, so you're going to step up into company, which I think is interesting. And I actually thought that negatively impacted Koapey. I only mentioned that because, to me, he screams like a Uttoxeter novice handicap chase, sort of October, November time. He won't be able to run in races like that because I don't think there's going to be too many. So he might finish behind some good horses and beginners chases. But I think that's a positive and, what's the word? It's a proactive thing that the BHA have done, and I'm hoping that does change the pattern a little bit, and hopefully you have more horses running in those good races as a result. Right, now it's your horses to follow, and the first one that we're going to talk about is from Dan Avery. He says, good luck with the show this year, lads. Thank you, Dan. My horse to follow is the Jukebox Man, and I think he'll win the King George what do you reckon? Now, actually, Craig Davies has also said, what about the Ryanair for the Jukebox Man? I think that race is tailor-made for him. I went to see Ben Pauling on Wednesday morning and we discussed the Jukebox Man. And Dan, you're going to be very happy. His plan, and his only plan really this season, is the King George. That is the one race that they know he's going to love because he was so good in the Quarto Star there last year. Now, they've got a bit of a conundrum with him because he only had 2 chase starts. He was brilliant at Newbury. He was a bit more professional at Kempton, but then he picked up an injury and he's only just about recovering from it now. Well, that's probably false. He's a bit further down the line, but we've not seen him since. I actually caught up with Ben Pauling now. Is his inexperience over fences almost a bit of a conundrum for you placing him this year?
A little bit early doors. He can't run in a lot of the better handicaps. You'd love to run him in a paddy power or something like that first time out, but he's only run twice, so he's not qualified for those. So he'll go to Ascot end of November for the 965 chase. The first big aim would be the King George. He was very good at Kempton last year. Yes, we only saw him twice, but he was foot perfect, and he's not the type of horse that's going to, he's got a great head on him, and he's a very good jumper. So the inexperience I'm not worried about so much, but I don't think he needs an overly arduous campaign. Maybe 3 or 4 runs throughout the season. I think 4 would be top end. But that would be the plan, and obviously we get Christmas out the way, and that'll sort of shape the rest of the season for him.
Beyond Kempton, the second half of the season, is he a Gold Cup horse?
Not necessarily sure he's a Gold Cup horse this year. We will find out as the season goes on.
Is your hunch at the moment?
I think
there's no need to go up to that.
Yeah, after he won at Newbury, he was so flamboyant that day. You could have quite easily dropped him back to 2 miles, but we chose to go for the Quarto Star, and he was a totally different horse that day. He lobbed away and behind. He didn't, he wasn't as exciting maybe to watch as he was at Newbury, because at Newbury it was proper heart in your mouth job. But at Kempton he really was ever so professional. He was A to B. He was incredibly fast and quick over his fences and efficient. Didn't make a mistake and won as he should have. Not sure that was necessarily the deepest Quarto Star we've ever seen, but he had to win it. He won it nicely, but he did look suited by the track, and a sharp 3 miles that really puts the emphasis on speed could well suit him very well this season. So that will be our main aim, and off the back of that, if he's in great form, you probably train him to go to Cheltenham for either the Ryanair or the Gold Cup. You'd probably give ourselves an option.
If you were to be 60-40?
I'd probably be Ryanair over Gold Cup this year, but with a view that I think he'd be a Gold Cup horse the next year after. I just don't think he needs to be rushed to stay 3 miles too, when if he's got the speed to operate over slightly shorter trips. I'm a firm believer you keep them as short a trip as you possibly can for as long as you can, and less miles on the clock, as it were.
There we go. So the 1965 chase is where Ben wants to start up. It actually turns out he can run in the paddy power. He is eligible, and that is an option. I've spoken to him since. But what do you think about the Jukebox Man? First and foremost, as a horse. Secondly, as the King George as the main year target. And thirdly, the comment at the end when he said more of a Ryanair horse than a Gold Cup horse.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, cracking horse. Hopefully he can get back to what he showed at times last year. He was exuberant. He was all the things you'd love to see in a novice chaser. I think the King George, as you mentioned, it seems tailor-made for him. He does have a tendency to shift slightly to his left, but it didn't seem exacerbated at Kempton. I suspect an awful lot of his opportunity and his chances in that will be determined by whether Gaelic Warrior is there, who would obviously seemingly have an outstanding chance in that type of race as well. I think the 1965 Chase is exactly where I would run him. I wouldn't be going close to a Paddy Power, personally speaking.
I mean, he is going to bump into some proper horses in that 1965 Chase. So there's a chance John Bond could turn up there. There's a chance a massive chance Pic Dory goes there anyway.
Yeah, but still going to be a 4 or 5 runner race max.
Could Grey Dawning go there?
Potentially so, but like running in a 20 runner handicap off top weight, you may win the race, but do you sacrifice your season by winning the race? Yeah. As for even if you came second to John Bond, to be honest, if he was, now you wouldn't know kind of what sort of fitness he'd get there in, but I'd fancy him to beat Grey Dawning over 2.5 miles.
Yeah. Well, Grey Dawning would probably go to the Betfair Chase, but it's probably an option.
It's an option, and I'm sure Dan Skelton was cognizant that probably derailed half of his season last year in the Betfair Chase. So he's an interesting horse. I like the shout of the Ryanair. I don't think he would stay the Gold Cup trip, and nothing about his run style would suggest that.
You could be aggressive over 2.5 with him, couldn't you?
You could, and the Ryanair over years gone by has suited horses ridden in that way, kind of aggressively ridden, good jumping front runners. Whether he's quite good enough to beat a Vactafile, I don't know.
Is this horse going to be the first horse that properly takes Ben Pauling to the top of the game amongst open chasers? He's had good novices. He's had brilliant novice hurdlers. I used to love Barter's Hill. Massive shame about him. He's had Cheltenham Festival winners. He's had Grade 1 novice chasers, but he's not had a Gold Cup horse. He's not had a Ryanair horse. Is he good enough, realistically, in your heart of hearts, to go and win a race like that?
I think he's good enough to win a King George,
which is King George's a massive race.
Which would indicate that yes, I do think he's in that type of realm. I think this is obviously on the kind of feeling that he retains every inch of ability. Based on last year, I do think he has every chance of turning into probably the best 2.5-3 mile horse in Britain, and that will obviously get him a long way.
Nose in Front asks, the Big Westerner. I think that she is my horse to follow, and she could be overpriced at 20-1 in the Brown Advisory. I spoke to Cathal from Coolmara Stables, her owner, and she will start in a Mare's Beginner's Chase and then be aimed at the Faheen Novice Chase at Limerick at Christmas, which is now over further. It's now 2.5 instead of 2.3. Could she feature in races like that?
She definitely could. I'm just intrigued by this pronunciation of Cathal rather than Cathal, but Cathal's a tremendous effort. But
it's spelled that way, in fairness. How do you say it?
Cathal.
No, it's not Cole.
Okay. Well, our Duolingo lessons are available on LTR Plus as well. She's a very likeable horse. You'd think, based on the look of her, that she'll be a better chaser this year. Hard to know. She obviously disappointed at the back end of last year at Fairy House. I think you've got to obviously give that away, but
that's so good. Carry on.
It's I wouldn't know whether she's a proper out and out, kind of geldings and mares Grade 1 horse, if that makes sense.
I've always felt like you've had to stay 4 miles to win that Faheen Novice's Chase, let alone 2 furlongs further. Good.
It's going to be slow motion.
It's going to be slow motion. Right. 2 for Josh Guerrero and Oliver Greenhall horses. Shrewd Napper, he's back. Says, I think Gamester's Guy could do a Jaguar and improve markedly for fences this season for Oliver Greenhall and Josh Guerrero. Lisa Hansen. That's great that we've got.
Sorry,
that we've got a female audience as well, which is tremendous. Lisa, thank you. Jaguar won all his chase starts last season, bar one. Despite being a big baby, he's yet to fully mature into his massive frame and has some engine. Right, I spoke to Josh Aguero and he said Jaguar, they've got the Paddy Power in mind. Nothing confirmed with the JP McManus team. And Gamester's Guy, he definitely goes chasing, so you'd be thrilled to know that, Shrewd. And we've always loved him and will improve for a fence. So Gamester's Guy will go chasing. What do you think about Jaguar? Because obviously the Cheltenham Festival winner, can he go up a gear into graded company, or is he he going to be like a national horse?
Well, yeah, like where do you campaign him is the problem. Like, obviously the Paddy Power makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
but if he goes and wins a Paddy Power, for instance,
He tempted to go into a King George picture or a Cotswold Chase or something like that.
You got to end up shaking into that sort of company. He didn't strike me as a horse that would ever be a national horse, to be honest, but you know, I agree completely that he still looked almost backward last year, even though he was winning all these races. He's probably at his most efficient at the festival, and he put in an excellent performance.
Yeah.
Gamester's Guy, I like that shout. He had some nice novice hurdle form.
I missed that one quote. Josh did say, "We hope he's the next Jaguar."
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I just don't know with him. He's starting off the mid-130s over hurdles. I didn't think, certainly on his hurdle mark, he wasn't being given anything away, which would slightly concern me. I don't think, unless they fiddle around with him in a couple of these beginners' chases, which they could easily do with, I'm not sure he's going to be starting quite at the right end of the handicap for me.
Interesting. Next horse, Dave also goes by Yorkshire Red. Says the New Lion because he'll win the champion hurdle. Now, the New Lion, believe it or not, is current favourite for the champion hurdle. Lossiemouth next in, State Man, Constitution Hill, Amsterdam, Ethical Diamond. It's a strong bunch. There are definitely some question marks amongst them. Constitution Hill being one of those, but the New Lion's got question marks himself. Is he quite a champion hurdle horse? I suspect the Fighting Fifth comes up first, but right now, would you not rather back Lossiemouth for the
Yeah, he's a
champion
woeful favourite, and I love the New Lion. I was very keen on him last year.
Lossiemouth's 5-1. That's almost a bet.
It is, but what if we get round to March and we've got our head in our hands?
Because she's running in the mares.
She's running at 3:20 rather than 4 o'clock, and State Man's back in the champion hurdle again. You know, it's,
What is nice is I don't think that the mares like Lossiemouth will have that option long term.
No,
I think they will change things.
Yeah, which seems a great ploy, really, because it was such a shame last year, especially the way the race ended up, that you couldn't have ever thought of the series of events that was going to happen. But as I say, I really like the New Line. I don't want to say anything bad about him, but at the same time, he is he's a terrible favourite for this race. I think just at this moment in time, I think there's every argument he should be third or fourth in the market. Yeah. I just look at...
Love him as a novice chaser.
Oh, he'd be absolutely class.
He'd be so good.
And they could drop him to 2 miles and he'd bowl along. Oh, it'd be class. But I think you'd have to look at it. He was so good at Cheltenham, but beating the Yellow Clay and Final Demand, who realistically are both going to end up in the Brown Advisory... It's two very different disciplines, and it looked to me like he just outsped 2 stayers. 2 very talented stayers, so he clearly is a very good horse and has plenty of ability. Champion hurdle's a different kettle of fish, though.
I wonder if the 2.5 mile novice chase was still around the Grade 1, would they have gone chasing? I'm not sure. He's clearly a horse with so much ability, and Dan has always, to be fair to him, talked about the champion hurdle with him. So you just kind of have to trust that. But I do think you're trusting it. I don't think he's shown quite yet, and it's very rare that you're going to be able to do that in novice hurdles of 2.5 miles. He's a champion hurdle horse yet.
No, and I think it's just that.
How often does the Turners produce champion hurdle horses anymore?
Not anymore. You reeled off a fantastic statistic on Road to Cheltenham. I was in awe of it.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Sam Crow, Sir Gerhard, Impere Pass. Yeah. They're all champion hurdle horses. They're not.
I was standing beside Ruby Walsh. He had his mouth open. He just couldn't believe what was coming out. It was fantastic.
The last one was Faheen, I think.
It's a long time ago, that.
Yep.
2014, Ballymore.
A long time ago. What were you going to say?
I just think with the New Line, I'm not saying he can't turn into it. I think it's just a case of basing on the question of what the market is like at the moment. Like, there's no way he should be a shorter price than State Man.
No, I agree. There's one big horse in there, Constitution Hill. Now I actually wanted to talk about Nicky Henderson as a whole, as a trainer going into this season, because he's got some question marks, and I do think that if things don't go well, he could have a terrible season. I say that because did you know he only had 1 bumper winner last year?
Yeah, it just felt last year, though, for the majority of time that the season just didn't get up and running.
It never got up and running. But obviously Nicky's a fantastic trainer. He's got brilliant horses in his yard. But go through the list. Constitution Hill, massive question marks.
Yep.
Would you want to back him for a champion hurdle after Punches Down? Absolutely not. So Gino, they're going to go slowly with him. He's not there yet. Obviously looked like he was riddled with ability. We don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back. Lou Lamba, I don't think is as good as Gino was going chasing. I think they're probably going to go chasing. But I would be tempted to stick him to hurdles and try and mop up those 2.5 mile hurdles if he can. I'm not sure he's a absolute superstar, albeit he did win a Grade 1 juvenile hurdle. John Bond, they're flirting with the idea of going up in trip. If that doesn't work, you've lost out on a lot of prize money in the Tingle Creek and the Schlur and this and that, the Clarence House. Django Bai was a pretty poor Arkle winner, wasn't he?
Well, it was all a bit of a mess, and then he got beaten at Aintree, so...
Is he a Ryanair horse?
Maybe. He's not going to win a Ryanair, though, is he?
No. And like I said, the young horses coming in, he needs to have a battalion of young horses that we don't know that's owned by Donnelly's or JP or anything like that. But I don't think they're there necessarily, because he had one bumper winner last year. I couldn't believe it. Girl from the Glen won at Plumpton. That was it. Funson.
Where?
One bumper winner, Nicky Henderson.
Yeah. Jeez, you wouldn't usually be getting excited about a Henderson horse winning a Plumpton either. Like,
no. Obviously, he had horses that placed in bumpers, but geez.
No, like it's just you've got the main horses there have got issues. You know, Sergino has health issues. Constitution Hill has health issues. You know, John Bon, I'm sure. I still would very much doubt that we won't end up getting to the Schlur chase, and John Bon's just there, is he not? Like,
but then he'd be fantastic in the King George. I'd love him to go that way. He'd be fantastic. Exuberant, speedy, stays.
I've always had my thoughts about John Bon. He's a remarkably good horse in the main. I don't know. You've always had it in your head about John Bon up in trip and stuff like that. I think he would look at the straight at Kempton with the last 3 fences, the last half mile, and his legs would be tied together.
Possibly. All of those...
I think he's a 2.5 miler.
But all the times we see him... Well, the one time we've seen him over 2.5 miles being at Aintree and he was a bit sluggish, it was after a long season, so I've just got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to move on to the next one. And Richard Hertz, who is an extremely knowledgeable man on Twitter, he is worth a follow. He talks a lot about young horses that we don't necessarily know about. So I respect his opinion extremely. And he says Dr. Dumanil, he's the horse he wants to follow. He said he's the most impressive bumper horse from last season. He was an uncomplicated ride, and he looks like he'd be the type for the shorter novice hurdles. Hopefully could be contesting the big races at the festival. So Richard Hertz thinks that Dr. Dumanil, Willie Mullins trained, won once at Cork. Could he be like a Copac de Board type?
Well, that's what people are going down. I can very much see the appeal. He's a horse that I've discussed with you throughout the summer. Realistically, he probably would have been in this video of from my horses to follow, although you did slightly kind of piss on my parade, to be honest. You don't seem to be too sweet on the horse.
I don't think he's Copac de Board.
No, but, I'm not sure he's that type of horse, though. I don't think he'd be running over 2 miles this year. I think he's definitely a 2.5 mile horse. Look,
does remind me a bit more of Jasmine DeVoe.
Yeah, he's just the type of horse. He kind of went through the race very professionally for his first start. He beat a pretty good yardstick. I mentioned him earlier in The Devil You Know, who is obviously, he's been beaten in 4 bumpers, but he's ran into some pretty decent horses in that, and he's relatively highly regarded, and there's another 12 lengths back to third. So, he's beaten Jack the Lad 25 lengths into third. So it could be seen. I can see why people would see it as being, oh, this is very impressive. I can see why people would go, it's a Mallow bumper, kind of in the middle to late March. Is it much?
Yeah, the last couple of years, I've been really warm on Ballyburn, really warm on Copac de Board. For some reason, he just doesn't get me going. And looking at the other notable Mullins horses from last year, Satordo was the highest RPR rated. Bambino Fever, obviously she won the Cheltenham bumper, won at Punchestown. Game of Inches looked a massive staying chaser.
Yeah.
Could be a Bartlett horse. A Green Splendor ran well at Aintree. Kaiser Ball, Copacabana, Wonderful Everyday we mentioned earlier. King Rasco Grey only ran once at Punchestown. He could be a Bartlett type as well. He's massive. Actually, funnily enough, owned by
Galopin de Champs,
Galopin
the Turleys, yeah.
Is there one in there that...
Well, no, but see, that's why I would look at it, and I can completely see why people are trying to see that Dr. de Menil is that. You've got Sortudo there, who's only got an inflated rating because he beat Shuttle Diplomacy at Ferry out by around 50 lengths on bottomless ground. Bambino Fever, I would say, ends up in a Mares Novice Hurdle rather than a Supreme. Game of Inches, I think, is again next year's horse.
Well, with Bambino Fever, they'll probably try her in the Grade 1 at the DRF. If she wins that, she might go to the Supreme. If she doesn't...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You give yourself options. Green Splendor won at Aintree. He reminds me of Blizzard of Oz, which isn't exactly a great... Kaiser Ball... great for the Costello family, but is Tom Costello going to be on him? Is Paul Townend going to be riding him? Yeah. Hard to know.
Copacabana, Ruby loved him going into Cheltenham.
Yeah, but blotted his copybook twice. Wonderful Everyday I mentioned earlier. I think she's nice.
King Rascal isn't a Supreme horse.
No, so who's going to be that horse? Is it going to be a French recruit? History tells us with the Supreme, it's more than likely, actually in recent years, going to be a bumper horse. So I can see why people are trying to make this horse it. I can also see the side of the fence that you've got your reservations.
Don't get me wrong. He was impressive. Clearly, I just don't think he's. And the one thing that's making me feel like he could be is Richard Hertz really likes him. But for my opinion, I'm just not sure about him.
Yeah, I'd be more keen on him than you'd be.
Right, the final one that we're going to talk about before we finish this up is from Monty. He says, I've been looking off the beaten track and have had a couple of freebies on Bud Fox for the Supreme and Turners. Now, if you didn't know who Bud Fox was, he won at Punchestown for Gavin Cromwell, and he looked very good.
He did. He did it very professionally. He was well backed on the day, into 3-1, and picked up like a nice horse.
If I was going to tame your enthusiasm slightly, not necessarily saying that you absolutely love
the horse. Tame away, why don't you? Maybe I want to get excited over here.
The race that he won hasn't been won by many.
No.
6.5 probably the best. Silos Emery, Lisniger Fortune.
Yeah, look, and to be honest, the favourite that day, Kutok, I think it is, for Gordon Elliott, has been beaten a few times since, including a few summer bumpers, which wouldn't necessarily be the greatest endorsement of the race.
But he looked really good. You can get excited about it.
He did look nice. I thought the Emmett Mullins horse, Soldier in Milan, I think it was, that was very well backed. He'd be the type of horse, if it wasn't for the fact that you wouldn't know what Emmett Mullins would do with them, he could turn up in a bloody Galmoy hurdle on his third start over hurdle or something, knowing that source. But I thought he was near on the most impressive visual bumper winner, from the gelding's perspective throughout the entirety of the week. But Fox wouldn't put you off. I suppose there's an element, I was saying this to you off air, we haven't necessarily seen Gavin Cromwell, obviously Gold Cup winning trainer, fantastic trainer. We haven't seen him necessarily with a Supreme horse or a Ballymore horse really kind of have one almost and turn up on the big day and be able to plot one throughout the season. The only one that comes into my mind is my mate Mozzie, and he didn't, he only got to around Christmas time fulfilling that dream.
No, I agree. I do also really like Soldier in Milan as well. I think he could be really nice. I actually spoke to Paul Byrne about Jeroboam Machan.
Yes.
The horse who won the DRF bumper that we've not seen since. He's back in training.
Very good.
They're slightly reserved about how much ability he'll retain.
It did seem a bad injury.
And it's been a long time since he's ran. But just for those out there that liked him, I definitely did. You loved him.
I think that's because he was the only winner on backed all season.
Well, hopefully he comes back and you can back him again and he can go and win. But he's coming back. I'd be a little bit reserved.
Did you ask about Soldier in Milan?
I didn't know. Poor from me. Anyway, I think that was a bumper episode to start things off.
I really enjoyed it, fantastic.
Cannot wait to hear what you've got to say below this video. Please send us your horses to follow. You can send 1, you can send 3, you can send 10, and we'll pick next week's video where we're talking about your horses to follow, as well as our next 4 each, and we'll pick some of the comments to read out and speak about, and hopefully if you've got any questions about horses, we can go away, do the research, and find out the answers for you. So until then, have a great time. You can go and watch 2 videos on LTR Plus as you watch this right now if you are subscribed. Ben Pauling, 20 minutes with him. Ollie Murphy, about 12 with him, talking about some of his horses, including Fingal Bridge. Will he go chasing? Will he stay hurdling? Answered on that video. So do go and enjoy that. Remember, 500 likes on this video and we will give something away in next week's episode. And until then, we'll see you in a bit.